Alright, legends, welcome to first segment of today's episode of Blunt Force Healing Podcast, episode 433. Since I didn't remind for a long time about what this project is, let me do it once again, especially for those of you that are new to the project. So Blunt Force Healing started as a blog plus audio podcast, or rather an audio version of the blog in a form of a podcast. The whole idea behind it was to make me accountable and do something every single day. And I decided that it's time to attempt blogging once again and just write about everyday stuff, thoughts, and whatever happens during the day to keep myself going. And in the process, if some people start reading the blog and watching or listening to the podcast, actually, it will be a super exciting and nice development. And this is what happened, really. Of course, I am nowhere near any popular podcast or anything like that, but I see viewership and listeners across the board from different countries, which is nice to have. And some of you are returning very, very often, pretty much every day, which is so uplifting that I'd like to especially thank you today for that, because I always appreciate those of you that read the blog or listen to the podcast or watch the video episodes. And I say that, but I want you to know that I really, really mean that, because it's a hard thing to do to maintain streak like that 433 days in a row without a single break of blogging and recording isn't something I would be, I think, capable of doing just for the sake of being accountable. So the fact that there are people out there that even listen from time to time or read the blog from time to time and even like the blog makes it possible to maintain that streak and to develop and evolve that slowly into something that maybe in future will give you and me more value and I would say more happiness just by being there. So we are at this stage. When I look in hindsight, I've done many changes and I didn't realize that much, but I came back to the first couple of posts, which were very short, very bland, but that was the intention, just to start. And some of them were messy. I started adding different tags and then categories of the blog posts. Then obviously the first 200 or 199 episodes were pure audio versions of me reading the blog posts, which was a bit mechanical. At day 200 milestone, I changed it to more of a freestyle. And then afterwards, I think it was about day 247 or 267, or something like that, I started doing video episodes instead of just audio regularly every single day. And I never stopped since as well. So I see it as a major evolution of this project and the podcast. I'm not sure how many of you reading the blog actually watch the videos and listen to me as well, because the blog itself is a centralized spot for both reading and watching and listening. Because what I do is every blog post has that video podcast embedded into it. But I also see a lot of people listening to the Spotify episodes. And that would mean either they listen just audio or actually watch on Spotify, because Spotify allows for video as well. So I don't have enough metrics to tell that deep into details what is happening, but any feedback from you guys is always appreciated if you can send anything, because it's very interesting. Spotify is not making it yet easy enough to get insights and analytics to what is happening, and those analytics can suggest me in which way it is better to evolve that further on, because obviously I don't have specific goal in mind for this project yet. I only maintain it. So priority for me is to maintain it, but also to evolve it, but in the way that it will be consumable and enjoyable for people rather than just myself. Of course, I want to enjoy producing it, but we can achieve something in between, or like a win-win scenario. And so far, this blog and podcast evolved to the point where I can fairly quickly produce especially the podcasts, the videos, because I'm only recording and speaking, and then obviously there is a part to it where I need to produce the captions, check it out to make sure that there's no obvious mistakes. I can't fix everything, but I can see obvious typos or something that whatever AI engine helps in building captions caught wrong, so I can correct it manually. But it saves a lot of time. I don't need to edit videos because I don't want to edit. I want it to be genuine as it can be. So I only stitch segments that I record across the day, and that's it. So you won't see me cutting in between, for now at least, because I don't see the point in doing it. If I do mistake, I want it to be recorded, because this shows that I'm just a regular person and not some perfect host of the video podcast or anything like that has massive production environment behind them. And it shows basically how the life goes. We do a lot of mistakes and silly things, so expect them to be included. This is the first segment, as I said. Not sure yet what will be coming the rest of the day, but it's exactly midday, 12:10. So we are just after the noon, and the weather is beautiful. It's dry, it's not windy at all. It's sunny, as you can see. So it's an ideal weather or day to go out, and this is what we're going to do. Julian is finishing his session on PlayStation. My wife is doing some other exercise that she wanted to complete before we go anywhere. I'm not sure yet where we are going to drive to and spend time, but we'll definitely be out, and I will record part of it outside. All right, we are at 10 minutes mark. I'll be back shortly. Hello legends and welcome back for a midday segment. Well, it's not a midday per se. It's what, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock?
No, it's way. It's like half a
Oh yeah, it's 1:30 actually. So we are on our afternoon short trip to explore one of the beaches that we weren't before to. And here is Crossland Gamer and myself. I showed you Elizabeth on the horizon. We are currently, oh, you can see how nice, well, it is yet. We don't have sunset yet, but it looks like it slightly. And we had a smooth ride. It was on the, I would say for some on the boring side. Julian fell asleep halfway, I guess. But he,
popping candy.
yeah, we got some popping candies.
Which I didn't know what it was before.
Yeah, Julian never had popping candies. Some of you guys probably have. There's a little bit of a caveman here. Now we found popping candies. I asked Julian if he ever had them. He said no, so I said,
what is that? And you're like, you're popping candy.
yeah. And did you ever try them?
Yeah, and then
And you said no.
yeah.
So I said, let's go. And we tried them. He's still coughing, as you can see. But I guess slightly, well, maybe not super better, but Julian is in the maintenance mode. We found the cough syrup at home. So we got a dose before we drove off. And we'll see if it helps. So for now, that's it, and probably the third and last segment, or whatever, finishing segment, will be at it soon. Hello legends, and welcome back. It's the final segment, I suspect, for today's episode of Blunt Force Healing Podcast, episode 433. We are back from our short trip. Well, not so short, it was probably about 3 hours or so. We drove towards northwest of Donegal County, and the whole idea was to check new area and also the beach that we've never been before. It's a little bit further than Donegal Airport and Carrickfinn Beach. It's the area where it's very hard to kind of explore multiple points in one go, because unless you have a long day and you want to drive a lot, this part of Donegal is very rough and, carved by different bays and coves. So wherever you want to go, you need to choose the roads around those kind of carved inlets. So it's always a long way between those places, even though they are very close to each other. And we went to Bunbeg area, which is just after that airport that I said. Yes, we do have airport in Donegal. I mentioned it in 1 or 2 posts before. It's a very small single strip airport that serves mostly domestic flights within Ireland, but also I think has some international flights to the UK, and I believe there were flights to Canada as well, and to the US, but I'm not sure about it, what the what the current state of Donegal airport is, because we've never used it before. We only seen it when we were at Carrickfinn Beach. Today we chose to see that Bunbeg beach, and there's another beach, I don't remember exactly the name of it, but the highlight, or I would say the point of interest there, is a little wreck of a boat, of a very old wooden type of boat. It was a ship, actually, a small ship. It's called Bod Eddy, and Bod basically means in Irish language a boat. Eddy, I suspect, is basically the name of the boat. But it's quite famous for those that explore the coast and Donegal County, or the tourists that go to Bunbeg area. At low tide, you can easily get with the dry foot and explore the wreck, the rest of it that's left. We were at the time when the tide was coming in, and was already about 2.5 hours in. So while it was very shallow, it's very cold, and we didn't approach it on foot directly. We just watched it from the beach and the shore. It's a very nice area, a lot of islands close to the shore where people live, and I suspect they cross the ocean or the sea or the bay with either the SUV or kind of Jeep type of cars, and there is a ferry for those of people that live on the islands that cannot be crossed easily at the low tide on land, or I would say on sand. So there are regular ferries to those islands, and people live there, which is amazing. I will drop some picture or two to the blog, so if you're interested, you can have a look. Obviously, if you watched the rest of the episode, you saw the part when we were walking alongside the beach, so you can I would say consume a little bit of what we've seen there. Very interesting area, a lot of places to walk over the dunes and the sand. I think there's almost endless possibility of trails that you can do across those dunes, and it's a vast area for walkers. We saw plenty of people there with dogs, and just as a families or single walkers. So a very nice area, despite the fact that you might have heard about those Thursday riots in Dublin, or riot that happened. Ireland is a very, very safe place to live. People are very kind, so don't get fooled by that single incident that happened on Thursday, which we've learned actually the next day. It was exactly on the day where we were returning from Morocco, and those sad scenes and unnecessary violence that exploded in city center was actually occurring at the same time when we were eating dinner and sipping coffee in the outskirts of Dublin, not completely unaware of what was happening there in Dublin. But the saddest part is not only the fact that people get easily manipulated and triggered by anti-immigrant or racist agenda of far right wing, I would say. Well, I don't want to call the right wing specifically, just extreme conservatists, people that cannot accept the fact that the world is not medieval place we need to evolve as a humanity and civilization. We can't stick to old ways just because they are old and we should respect them. We need to review them. We need to look into them and see if they are still valid ways to behave or follow as a guidance, because obviously there are many things from the past that we should ditch and replace with, especially in thinking. Like, we used to be a very close-minded people in the past in many countries, and that caused a lot of suffering to people and, you know, in different areas. So being anti-immigrant just for the sake of being anti-immigrant is a stupid thing to be honest. Like, there's no alternative, or there's no other side to it. Of course, there are immigrant people that do bad things, the same way as domestic people do bad things. But it's not about the immigrants, it's about the person that does the bad thing. So by the fact that single person is actually different nationality, you can't generalize and become anti-nationality or anti-nation because of a single person. Obviously, it's kind of logical, but it doesn't seem to hit the base for some people that are manipulated and easily triggered by emotions. And if you don't know what caused those riots, there was a sadder and very bad incident that happened in earlier hours in Dublin, where a man, Irish citizen but of the Algerian origin as far as we know, but living 20 years in Ireland, naturalized. So he was formerly an Irish citizen, living in Ireland, being with Irish people around. So it's not that it's Algerian accent that is important. No, it's just a fact among others, but happened to be Algerian origin, but Irish citizen, in his 40s or 50s. That person stabbed a child and attempted to stab more children. In the effect, the care person, be it, I don't think it was a teacher, but person that was carrying a lady that was caring about those children, she shielded other children from the attack and got stabbed as well. Both, I think, the initial child and the carer are still in a critical condition in the hospital. So that's a very sad scenario. I can't understand a person stabbing a person, but it's even harder for me to understand how can an adult stab a child. You know, it's enough that you're stabbing another human being, but how bad your mind must be and how cowardly the character of one person must be to approach with a weapon another human being that is even weaker or unable to defend itself in such attack than the attacker. I can't grasp it. It's very hard, even with my logical approach to many things that some people might not like, because, you know, I know there are mental issues. I know that people are beyond their heads, but even then there are certain behaviors that a human being should be equipped with, especially living 40-50 years on this earth and not doing it before. So what drives a person to attack a child with a knife is still beyond me. And that sad scenario has no positive elements to it, albeit there was a human positive accent to it, because the bypasser that is already probably famous in the newspapers and some media outlets, a Brazilian origin immigrant, a delivery driver, happened to be close to the scene and recognized that there's something bad happening. And he himself is a father of two. He came off his motorbike and used his helmet to approach the attacker, defend himself with that helmet from the knife, but also to knock this guy out and knock him to the point that he was defenseless for a moment, enough so the other bypassers could help and incapacitate that attacker and make sure that he's brought to justice. Of course, justice is a vague term here. I don't know what can bring justice in to people, to a kid and the person that was stabbed and is still in critical conditions, but that's kind of sad side of humanity. But it happened, and it happens all around the world, and we need to do as much as we can to prevent it or avoid it. I'll close it off now because we are 15 minutes in. I'm not sure if I was able to squeeze in enough because we did a short update before. I hope I can fit in within 30 minutes Spotify limit. That's it for today. More in the blog. You're welcome to come and read it because I will be talking about our tough airport departure in Morocco. So head on to the blog, have a read, stay tuned, and see you tomorrow.